Let's work on this. Ladies and gentlemen, this right here is a water well pump jack. And some of you might be wondering, what the hell is a pump jack? Well, it's essentially a glorified gearbox. That's really all it is. And its only purpose is to move a sucker rod up and down to run a pump that is down in a water well casing. Okay, so towards the end of the video, you'll get, I'll show you the well itself. It's not at this location, it's at the other place. Okay, so it's pretty simple. This is your pump jack right here, okay? Sorry. It's got a couple of wooden beams that attach up here to a yoke. And then there is a rod that goes down, because let's pretend this is the well casing. Here's the pump. A sucker rod goes down into the pump, and the pump has a line that goes down where the water is at the bottom of the well casing. So all this pump jack does, again, glorified gearbox, all it does is move this sucker rod up and down so that this pump can pull water in and push it out to the top where there is a spout that comes out and water goes into the tank. And I know my drawing skills are horrible. I did not go to art school because this is about the extent of my skill. But that should give you a good enough visual to kind of imagine what's going on until the end of the video, where we go and actually put this on the well. Now, the well is in service currently. We have 3 of these units. This is the best one just because this has the best bushings in it. It's the most tight. The one that's on there is supposed to be the backup unit, and it's got a lot of play right in here. There's supposed to be, originally it was just cast and machined. This one, I believe, has a bushing. That one needs a bushing that's in service now because this is all floppy. But, I haven't had a chance to reseal this, and that's the big thing we're going to be doing today, is inspecting the gears and just putting new seals in it. But this is the best unit that we have, and so we're going to have we're going to have an outfit, a water well outfit, come out, and what they're going to do is they're going to pull the well, which essentially we'll just take the pump jack off and the rods and stuff. They'll hook onto it. They'll pull that piece of pipe with the pump out. The pump has a check valve and leathers in it, literal pieces of leather, which grab the water and move it up. They're going to replace those leathers. They're going to look at that check valve. This piece of steel pipe here is going to get replaced because it's all rusty, because the water's got some jip in it, and that's kind of hard on metal. Gives the cows the runs, but otherwise it ain't bad for them. And then they're also going to take, because this extension down to the water is actually PVC, they're going to extend that PVC so that it's in better water down here, so that it'll pump more water better, which is the goal. We want more water out of that well. And I don't remember exactly how deep the well hole is. I think it's about 40 to 48 foot from the ground to the bottom. I don't remember exactly. But they're going to come out and do that, and when they do, we're going to put this good unit on there. Also because it's still got paint on it and it looks pretty. So that's the whole plan. That's why we're getting to this now, and that's pretty much it. Let's just get into it. There is one more thing I will mention. This is, of course, a Duplex Model 55 Figure 88. We have 3 of these exact units, as I said. This is the best one. The backup one's in service. And then the junk one, which has chewed up gears, is right here under the bench. And then there's another one right here, and I don't remember, because so there's one here that serves the same purpose. There's a unit here, which is a different brand. I want to say it's a Simpson, but I'm not entirely sure. This one, though, is backwards. Instead of having the pulley on this side, it's got the pulley on this side, and it runs differently. I have no clue if this one's any good or not. I've never taken it apart. We're not interested in using it. We've got plenty of these Duplex units. And about parts, if you're looking for hard parts, shafts, gears, I don't know how to help you. If you break the casting, the casing, the cover plates, any of that, I have no clue how to help you. My local water well shop is somehow able to get gears for these units. I don't know how or where. I don't even know that they can get them now, because the last time I went in there to get gears, the wait time was several months, and they were, oh man, I don't even remember how long. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now, actually. The wait time was ridiculous, and they were not cheap. So I don't know if you can get gears for them or not. If you break the casting, if you break the cover plates, you're going to have a hard time fixing those, I suppose, unless you want to cast new ones. There are, hang on, sorry, these are really heavy. They're all cast iron. There are a couple of plates back here. If you break those, you could probably machine them down. You could get a new piece of metal and machine a piece of metal for that, you know, if you had a lathe. If you break the arms, I don't know what to tell you. There's just a lot that you shouldn't ever actually be breaking these unless they get water in them somehow. They should not be broken. You could probably braze them back together if you were curious. But as far as I know, Duplex is no longer in business, and there is no one that has taken up the mantle of manufacturing parts to service these. That's just to my knowledge. I'm not really an expert on these pump jacks. I'm just a guy that's messed with them for several years and decided to put it on the internet. All right, I'm going to give you guys as good an angle as I possibly can, but I got to have room to get in here and work and see and all that, so be patient with me. Now, years ago, when this was last used, when I took it off, I went ahead and drained the oil. There is your fill plug's here, your drain plug is here, and then there's another kind of a vent plug up here, which you should just open up so air can get in and the oil can drain out. But the oil is out of it. So the first thing that we are going to do is actually get these arms off here, these two arms. Now, they are keyed, so really it's kind of impossible for you to orient them wrong. Unless you're putting new gears in, but we're not going to get into that because we're not messing with it at this time. So, what you are going to want, this takes 3/4 wrench, and of course the bolt's going to spin on that one. It's just a basic pinch bolt. It is nothing fancy. The bolts are not keyed. See, some of these, and I'll mention this now, some of these units are going to have a hodgepodge of hardware. In theory, they're all standardized, but like this bolt here has a square head. This one here is a hex head. Does it matter? No. What matters is that the bolt is the right size and it fits through there. All it's doing is keeping this arm captured on this shaft. Okay, good news. After being done for a few minutes, I remembered how I actually was getting these off, and it's actually a lot easier than I was making it out to be. So you do need a chisel, but instead of trying to spread those arms, you just stick the chisel in and do it that way. And this one's coming off pretty easy, which is what we want. Almost there. There we go. Same thing on the other side. And even though that one's coming off a little harder, it's still not hurting anything. Once you get it started, you can get in there really and it's just kind of hard to keep your chisels in there, and just try and be careful not to nick the shaft too much or damage the seal. Yeah, see, they come off not too bad once you get them started, but You don't want them to just fall off. Next, just use a pair of side cutters to remove the 2 woodruff keys. Don't lose those. They're important. And you do need to be careful because at this step, once you remove these, sorry, my arm's in the way. Once you remove these woodruff keys, what can happen is that the shaft will just fall through when you take the cover plates off. So just keep that in mind. One thing I like to do at this stage, and you don't have to, but one thing I like to do is go ahead and break the bolts loose on these outer plates so that I know that they're going to be loose and I can just spin them off without having to flip the unit back over. And since I was the last one to put this together, they weren't on there very tight, which is good. Okay, now we can take the face plates off. Now, this is where it gets really fun. If this still has a factory hardware, this is the only time you're probably ever going to use a 5/8 wrench, and this is the one with the 3/4 nuts on it, of course, I forgot. Most of these, I say most of these like I'm a complete expert. The other 2 units, these nuts are 5/8, and that's like the only time I ever use 5/8. But the backside of these should be 9/16 head, which means these are 3/4. Where did I put my 3/4 wrench? Where did I put my 3/4 wrench? Oh, it's right here. That's what they are. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a size. That's better. 11/16. Now, sometimes, if you're lucky, the bolt will go ahead and hold and you can spin the nut off because it's kind of hard to get on the back side of these with a 9/16 wrench. But I know that this little bugger down there is 9/16. So anyway, most of these nuts that are on these face plates are going to be 5/8. It's like the only time you ever use that wrench size. Then we'll just spin that off right there. This one has the good hardware in it. Some of these you got to pay attention. Make sure your bolts aren't rusty and pitted. If they are, replace them. It's just a regular 3/8 bolt. It's just for some goofy reason, instead of putting a small washer in, Duplex decided to get a weird sized nut and put on to help hold that faceplate. Now, if you want to, I will mention this because it's kind of in the way here. If you want to take this pulley off now, you can. The way I'm disassembling this is just the way I think is best. I like to leave the pulley on there because it helps give me something to grab a hold of when we take this shaft out, this cross shaft, which it will have to come out so I can reseal this end. And then finally that right there. If these are old, you probably are going to have to tap them with a hammer to break the seals. Some of them may not have seals, or gaskets, I mean. This one does have thin gaskets on it. I prefer to use cork. A regular gasket will work just fine. So we pull that plate off there, and this plate off here, and then that's what it looks like inside. I mean, it's really, really simple. The shaft turns, rotates everything around, and then your arms just move to the inside and up, and it all works really good. And I'm actually surprised there's no flash rust in there because the oil's been out of it for so long. I don't remember what oil I was running in this last. It could have been gear oil, it could have been used motor oil, it could have been new motor oil, it could have been the right oil. The world will never know. All right, so this next step is kind of a little important, and you should pay attention to it. What you want to do, because you could just pull these out now, and we can get a good look at each one. If we get it in the light here, we can see. So there is a little bit of wear on it, but the contact pattern is exactly what we want. Sorry, let me hold it in the right spot. Yes, this is a helical cut gear, but the contact pattern is exactly where we want it to be. You have to keep these gears on the right side and facing the right direction. If, for whatever reason, I don't ever do a video on putting new gears in these, it is absolutely critical that you put the right gear on the right side in the right direction, because these will run backwards. They won't run backwards very well for very long. They'll grind themselves up, but they will run backwards, and you might think you've got everything set right, but then as they start to wear in, they'll bind. And that's not what you want. Ask me how I know. This is the 1103. Sorry, I had to get it in the light. This is the 1103 gear. And if the gears are all cast right and cut correctly, then this 1103, this casting number, should face the plate, so that when you pull the faceplate off on this side, you should be able to see that number. Very important, because, you know, it goes in like that. Now, on this side, this is, I think, the 1104. Hang on here. Some of these, yeah, see this right here? This is not good. These gears are supposed to be pressed on these shafts. This is why we have shims in here. I remember now. That's why I had this one set up like this, is because this shaft was floating, and that's not what we want. So that's bad. We'll have to see if we can fix that any. The key will hold it from spinning, but see, this is the 1104, and the casting number on it should face the front. This is not a write-off for this, okay? It is still usable. It's perfectly usable. It's just we'll have to put some extra of these little shims in to help keep everything in line where it's supposed to be. And we'll just hang on here. Get another hand in. I'm going to have two hands for that, or I'm going to slice my fingers open. So that is something, they're not supposed to do that, okay? They're supposed to be pressed on here. They will run like this. It's not going to hurt them, but we'll just have to shim it to make sure that, because the drift is controlled by the back plate. And then if you have a shim here, that's why this arm was moving in and out so much, is because this shaft was floating. It's usable, but I don't like that. It should be a press fit. These are just mild steel with a milled slot for the Woodruff key. You could probably get one of these made if you needed. But I'll have to figure out what to do with it a little bit later. But the big thing is here, make sure your gears are facing the right way. So the casting number on 1104, which is the left side, should be facing the front. And the right side, which is the 1103 gear, should be facing the rear. You should be able to see the number on this side. You should not be able to see the number on this side. If the gears are cut correctly, if you get replacement gears or you start swapping gears and shafts or whatever. So off camera, I went ahead and pulled these out. There's nothing to them. Just be careful with the gasket if you think it's reusable. So this, I don't know if this light's going to help or not. So this unit in here is actually pretty clean still, which is good. This actually, I think, was a reman that we got from the water well shop, the more I think about it. And it's still pretty clean in there. You got to be careful because sludge will build up on the bottom of these sometimes. There's still some oil in there, but we're just going to condition that wood. It's not going to hurt anything. If these sit for a long time, if you have one of these, like an old unit that's never been taken care of, chances are it's got a whole pile of sludge and gunk in the bottom that's built up over the years. This is why every year I drain the oil and I go ahead and clean all this out with brake clean, make sure it's fairly good. And if you just do that every year, you don't get a lot of buildup in these. And if you use the right oil, you also don't get a lot of buildup in these. So this one actually looks okay. Now, while we're still in here, we will take a good look at the worm gears. And they're actually wearing about where they should. This one's a little high wear in that center spiral, but that's all right. It's not bad. They're not getting sharp. They're not starting to get sharp. This side is actually wearing, hang on. This side's actually wearing a lot better. If you can see that on camera at all, I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention. This side's actually a lot better, which is kind of weird because that's been drifting in and out, which the wear pattern on this gear is just fine. It's a little, trying to think here, my gear terminology. It is a little, you can see the, can't really see the shine all that well there. We'll look at it a little bit closer later. It's a little bit to the heel. It's actually a lot to the heel, and I don't really want heel wear, but it's not eating up this worm gear as much, which is interesting. So the only other thing that we need to do here before we can get to the full breakdown of all the individual components is to pull these worm gears out. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I did not use safety wire. I used smooth wire because that's what I had, and so that's pretty easy to get rid of. We just, well, in theory, we just do that. We have to do it there. That's better. And we'll do it there as well. And then we can just come in and hopefully without ripping the whole thing off the bench, just pull it out. And then these set screws here, these single set screws are the only thing, I kid you not, that holds this setup in. Why is that wanting to be a pain in the butt? There you go. Whee! And so, yeah, these set screws are the only thing that hold these worm gears in place. There are numbers on them as well, 1102 and 1101. So odd side, even side for your numbers. And yeah, by the way, they're ambidextrous. That it doesn't matter what side they go on. Just in case I forget to mention, there is a passage down here for oil so that you can get oil into this bushing and that it will go ahead and drain back out through here into the case. But we'll look at that a little closer in a minute because that's where some of our seals go. With the set screws loose, which is the reason I leave this pulley on for so long, but with the set screws loose, now that I know I can break them free, I don't have to hold on stuff and really get on it. We can loosen this right here, and we can tap this pulley off. But what we actually need to do is tap it in. So let me get you set up a little bit different here so you can see better. Kind of. There, that should do. All right, so there's a plug on the end here. This end holds grease. This end holds grease. This middle part gets what it, if anything, it just gets it whatever it can grasp at. There's no provision for grease here. And I've thought about drilling and putting a grease zert in, and then I thought, you know what, nah, I don't really want to. So, to get these out, you need to, I like to knock this plug out first. It's easiest to do with the shaft still in there, and it also helps get this pulley off. So I will take a McPunch and just delicately, we don't have to be violent. Yep, moving just fine. There's that plug. We got it free from the pulley. So we can take the pulley off. Set that aside. Do not lose the key stock. I've done that more than once. Don't lose it. It's important. And so now, in theory, because I've had this apart before, we're going to go ahead and loosen that up a little bit more. Should just come out. Nope, we're going to have to give it some persuasion. That's okay. We can get her started just fine. All right, now on these worm gears, there are shims. Because there's grease and oil, they will usually stick together. So on this side we have two, looks like. Yep, we have two that go right here. So set that aside on the empty workbench. And then on this next side, it's really fun when you have to put two sets of shims in when you're putting this rod back through, but we'll just grab that with our man hands here. And gently work it out, and then that gear should go ahead and drop. And we've got 3 shims on that side right there. These are, if these start to get sharp, I just replace them. I got a stack of them. They're probably some special order washer, but I've never had to order any because, like I said, I've always had a stack of the damn things. And so now, what we can do, let me turn you here. We can pull that shaft out the rest of the way. We'll just give her a quick wipe. And this is actually in excellent shape right through here. So get it on camera here where we can analyze it. So this is the far end. There is not, I mean, there's going to be a little wear. This is just mild steel. And by the way, just in case I forget to mention, if you're putting these back together, there are 2 different places where you could put those worm gears. And so you got to be careful that you get everything lined up right. Now, usually in the middle here, this is where it's really rusty. On the other units, I have pulled this shaft out. It's fought me because it just rusted in here so damn bad. And I take some emery cloth and clean it up, but get it in the light here a little better. I do not believe I've ever done that with this one. I don't see any witness marks. It's got a little rust on it and pitting, but it's not a big deal because it just rides in the middle. And then on this end, oh, there's too much stuff in the shop. Okay, we'll get a little over here, actually. Okay, so this right here, there's a little bit of a lip on it. That's where it rides, right in here. And if you put too much strain on the pulley, it's going to want to pull the shaft, and it will lay that down over time. It'll eat the seal up, which is why, and again, you'll see it on the well towards the end of the video. The way I have the belt set up, it's not as tight as can humanly be, and the plate, or the mount that sits on, it's resting against this faceplate on this side so that it's not just sitting there bouncing around and the weight of the motor is not keeping tension on the belt. I actually have tension on the belt through proper adjustment of the motor. And that not only makes the belts last a little longer, but it also stops this from wanting to get eat up quite so much. The setups that we've had in the past, we just kept putting weight on each side to balance it so it would quit bouncing around. Well, what that would do is it just eat the belts up and it'd destroy the seals. So that shaft looks good. We don't have to do much with it. You don't want to beat on any of these shafts too hard, just by the by. They are mild steel. You will mushroom them very, very easily, and then it will be very hard to get stuff back in where it's supposed to go, assuming it's all tight like it's supposed to be. So we've got it all apart. And like I said, this unit's actually in pretty good shape. There's not too much wrong with it. The gaskets I made are still okay. They don't have to be great gaskets. They're not, I mean, there's no pressure on any of this. The only pressure you're fighting is gravity. And it wasn't leaking all that bad before. And if the seals are good, they generally won't leak too bad as a general rule. So I will use a little bit of brake clean and I'll just get most of this gunk out of here. It won't hurt the gaskets any. If these gaskets were bad, I would replace them with cork, but they're not bad, so we're all good there. And get this cleaned up, get everything else cleaned up and inspected, and then we'll go ahead and throw some seals in this and get it back together. Okay, so I was cleaning stuff up, and I was looking at everything, and I was trying to figure out why this gear was fitting loose, and I think I figured out why, and it's not good. And you might be able to see it on camera. Actually, you can see it very well on camera right now. There's a crack right here, okay, and right here. They start, and I don't know if I can, hang on, let me turn the flash on here. Maybe you can get in there and see a little bit better. So we have that crack there, and it might be hard to tell on camera, but it does start down a little bit right there. You might be able to see that. Damn it, stuck my hand in the oil. And then this other crack right here, this one is just as bad. Here, let me just turn the gear. Duh. This one, the more I look at it, actually, the worse it gets. This one right here, it's very obvious, and you can see it goes down in there like that. So 1, 2 cracks on this side, and you may not be able to tell, and this might be the way it was cast, and you may not be able to tell on camera, but it looks like this part has been pulled up a little bit. Now, I don't know if it has been like that since we got it, or if it was a recent development. I don't remember. It's been several years. Now, on this side here, I thought I saw another one. Sometimes this shows up a little bit better on camera. Yep, sure enough, there is a crack right there. That's not so bad. I saw that one earlier, and then as we're looking around here, see if I can get you in a little closer. Sometimes that stuff shows up easier on the camera. So I'm going to look through the camera, and we'll spin this around and look for additional cracks. And I don't see any. And this one, which is right here, it does not, it does not appear, this one right here, does not appear to go down in there quite so far. So this side, that little tiny crack, I'm not worried about. But these right here are pretty obvious if we get it in the right light. Right here. And the other one is, I know what's in there. There's one. Well, the point is there's 2 cracks, and this gear is loose. So I'm going to continue on with the rebuild. But here's what's going to happen. This is going to have to be replaced. I do not feel comfortable running this as a main unit with that kind of drift. That kind of run out is going to destroy the seals almost immediately. So I'm going to put this all back together. This will be the backup unit. And then I will go into the water well shop and I'll see if they can get me another 1104 gear. And maybe a couple other things. We'll see about that. And we'll see about getting it put back together. Now, the other thing I noticed on this one was the wear pattern. And I'm pretty sure it's because it was loose and there was so much run out. Was that this is wearing really, really bad. Let's see, where are the numbers at? These are the numbers. So this would be, this would actually be the toe of the gear because it would sit in there this way. So there's a lot of toe wear right in here on all of these, and it's not something I am particularly fond of. I don't know the pitch of these gears, but I don't like that. That's really, really bad. And I imagine that's because this thing's just floating in there. And so what it's probably doing, and I'm not an expert on gears, but if I had to guess, what's going on is that the worm gear wants to force this away. And it was able to do that. But the arm on the shaft was stopping it from just pushing it all the way back in, which is why this isn't all chewed up. But you can tell there's some shine here that's not bad, but it shouldn't be quite like that. And this is virtually untouched. Whereas on this side, there's a little bit of, hang on, flash on. There's a little bit of shine here where it started to wear. And on the front side, oh, there's a spot like there, and there's a couple other spots, but this one was centered and running correctly. But I also noticed, though it is pretty well centered on this gear here, there are a couple of points where it just has started eating these things up. And so I'm pretty sure this needs, I might go ahead and just do both gears. That would probably be smart. Now, while I was digging around or looking at stuff, I remembered I kept a box of some of the old parts that I took out of stuff. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is an 1103 gear. out of, and these are super damn sharp. I'm pretty sure you figured that out, but they are very, very sharp. This is out of one of the units. I don't remember. I don't think we ever ran this unit. It was just junk when we took it apart because it wouldn't work at all. And it just sheared the living crap out of this stuff. And as you can see, the wear is not even all the way around. It's bad, but it sheared off one side and the 2/3 of the gear are intact. And that is where this 1103 gear is going. I don't know if that's a defect in the 1103 gears. And then I believe in here, one of these, that one was getting sharp. And this one here was also, this is the 1101. So this is what was paired to this gear right here. And it was just eating itself up. So this is why we take stuff apart and inspect it. I will have to go and see about parts before this can be put back into service. So this is actually going to be the backup unit now. And the backup unit's going to just be the main unit for now. But we're going to go ahead and put all this back together. Okay, well, next step moving forward is we're going to drive this seal out. I'm not going to show everything just because it's pretty basic. To get these out of here, they're not anything complicated. Just get a screwdriver in there and... Well, that one came out like way easier than I thought it would, so that's good. We're not going to complain. Should be able to, if I remember right, do the same thing with this seal right here. In theory, I may have to get a shorter screwdriver. Yep, I'm going to have to get a shorter screwdriver, but let's try something first. Maybe if we could just peel it right out. Awesome. Powerstroke Panther, he was out here. He must have gone up to the house. So, seals. Yeah, that's what I was doing. Okay, so the seals for these are an SKF CR 11061. They're the same thing. And they're just a very basic single lip oil seal. Now, side note here, this kind of applies to the next one we're going to talk about for the case. If you look at this, it's really simple. The lip is angled in such a way that when you go to reassemble this, because it's about the only way to reassemble it, you are better to install it. I mean, you could install it this way. And I'm contemplating doing it that way, but I'm also thinking about doing it this way. The problem is when you go to assemble it, this would be better because you shove the shaft through and it would work with the angle of that seal and you'd be fine. But when you go to disassemble it, if you ever disassemble it, which you should never have to, this would be a lot easier on it, because if I do it this way and I go to disassemble it, it's almost guaranteed to destroy the seal to where it's not usable anymore. Maybe not like to that level, but it's going to get screwed up. And so I could either do it backwards and then just have these on hand, which I probably should do if I was smart, or I could just install it this way. But there's really no way to install this backwards. This is how I used to do it. I'm thinking about doing it this way and seeing how that works. But you can do it either way. The big thing is that's the seal number. And then the seal for the case, for this long shaft here, that is an 8624. And I'll put these in the description so that you don't have to like pause the video or anything, because I'm a nice guy. And they should be a fairly common seal. Should be able to get them and pretty much anywhere. And go ahead and throw them in. Assuming that these were not milled out and a new bushing put in and they didn't change the bore size or anything stupid. Like the last person to come in here and do it. Shouldn't be a problem, but you never know. Alright, well, I'll admit this might seem a little crude, but I'm a farmer, so it doesn't matter. I have decided to install the seals backwards. So I get it started, and then I use this washer to get over that sharp edge so it doesn't dig into my block of wood too much. And then Bob's your uncle just installs it right beautiful. And I'll do something similar on the case. Oops. That did not go in very clean. Hang on. Well, that's okay. I'm sure we can fix it. Right. Oh, no. That's going to be... That's not good. Yeah, we just won't tell anyone, right? Okay, reassembly time, as far as we're going to go anyway. Only thing you really need to pay attention to is that there is a cutout down here, which is designed to fit in that hole right there, so that oil, which enters partially from the top and partially from the shaft into this bushing to lubricate here, is able to fall down into this crevasse here through this bottom hole back into the case. So that's really all you need to pay attention to on that front. In case you guys didn't notice, the bolts that go on the bottom of the face plates are the same bolts that go here, just like a 3/8 by inch, inch and a quarter. All right, when you're tightening these down, they do not need to be super tight. It's just not necessary. And try and tighten them evenly just to make sure you don't crack that cast. I don't know how good a cast it is, you know, and so it's always a good idea on something like this to just be a little extra careful. And just tighten them down evenly, snug them up. You don't have to necessarily outright tighten them, just snug them up, and then that way you can get it back apart and you're not going to break stuff. Okay, we'll slide the cross shaft in with the worm gears. Remember, and I actually have it cast here, 1102, 1104, 1101, 1103. So your odd numbered gears are going to go there. And we kept our shim stack on this worm gear. Make sure that this end with the slot for the key stock is on that side, and then ever so delicately work that in. And we'll worry about getting the gears positioned here in a second. What we want to do is right there, okay? So now our next gear, which only had a couple of shims on this end, goes in, sort of. May have to pull that back. And now shove it in. If those shims get out, that's the hardest part of this whole thing, is if those shims get crooked, but this actually went in just fine. Good deal. Okay, and then that's all the way through. All right, now what we can do, and this is where it gets really fun, is line up the gears with the appropriate holes in the shaft so we could put the set screws in. Okay, so oddly enough, this one should be fairly well lined up. You guys can kind of see it in there. And we do not put the safety wire on until we're certain that we got these in the right spot. Get this, be able to grab that and turn it without any problem. And this should stay static. If I hold this here like so, and I grab the end of the shaft to go and turn it, that should not turn. That means the set screw is where it's supposed to be. And it shouldn't move in and out. So now we'll do this side. Yep. Seems right. We can flop these around if we have to, or adjust them later if we have to. That seems nice and tight. That's good. That's what we want. And that should be right on both ends. So now what Okay, well, as I said earlier, we are going to go ahead and put this back together like I'm going to use it. I just won't use it. So I will not put the arms on the outside, but I will go ahead and safety wire the worm screws because I know they're good. And after I do that, then we'll put the face plates on with the gaskets and we'll call her good. And then anything else that needs to be put on, I mean, we'll throw this plug in the end too. But anything else that needs to be done, we can do if an emergency comes up and we have to use this unit. That's when we will do it. But see, this right here, this type of backlash is normal. That's fine. What you don't want is a bunch of in and out. That's really bad. So, safety wire, because you're supposed to use a special type of wire, but I'm a farmer, and I'm not going to do that. Because what I have laying around here, believe it or not, is all this perfectly good smooth wire for like an electric fence or just generic fencing. And there's just no reason to let this stuff go to waste. I mean, I've actually gotten pretty good safety wiring. Sorry, I got the wire stuck in the microphone. I've actually gotten pretty good at running the wire around and getting it tight. And there's special pliers and stuff you're supposed to have, but I'll just use these. These suck, by the way. These channel lock lineman pliers, don't ever buy them. They suck. But they will work good enough to safety wire our set screws. Get you a little closer. All right. There we go. Take two. Got the screw lined up. Then we can take the shaft and just spin that bad boy all the way around. Give it a little There we go. That's better. Give us something to work with here. Stupid fancy tools. Who needs fancy tools? Ta-da! All right, well, it's all fancily safety wired and such. It's not my best work, but it will do just fine. So the last step is just to button the whole thing up, which, I mean, that's really all there is left to do till I get some gears for this thing, if I can get gears for this thing. If I can find out where that goes. There we are. That's pretty much the end of this. I might do a separate video of taking that other unit apart, but I think this one's gone on long enough. I'll show you that water well. I'll tack something onto the end of this so that you guys can see what I was talking about earlier with the wood beams and stuff like that. You can see one of these in action. And then we'll put this one on when I get good gears in it, I guess. So I appreciate you guys sticking around if you made it all the way through this. And in case I forget to say it in the next little segment, appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, please do ask me. I will answer them if I can. And we'll just catch you all in the next one. This right here is what it's all about. That's what they do when it's working. Just an electric motor turns that wheel, runs these beams. That sucker rod goes down there to the pump. And the pump pulls up water, dumps it into that tank, and then we transfer it into those two tanks. But this is what the pump jack looks like when it's all working. It leaks a little bit, but it's not too bad. I'm on my way back from town. Stopped at the water shop to see if they can get gears for these damn things, and the guy did not think they were going to be able to. He said probably not, but we'll call around and see. So I'm not crossing my fingers. We may just have to run those units if it comes to it and work on a different solution. But regardless, we got 3 that we can use, which is what matters. And I will also note that the unit under the bench, the gears in it are starting to go. They're a little bit worse than the one you saw me pull apart today, but they're not so bad it can't be run. I just don't think it would run very long. So, pretty simple. It's probably why they went out of business. Just so simple, these things never quit. They couldn't sell any parts. So, make of that what you will. Thank you all for watching.